Your senses pick up information from the environment. Your senses pick up information from the environment. You tune some of those things out if they are not deemed necessary. The things that pass through your sensory register make it to your immediate memory, where it can stay for up to 30 seconds. Then, the information can pass through to your working memory, where you can chunk things to increase the capacity of your working memory. Children younger than 5 average a working memory capacity of 2. Children between 5 and 14 average a capacity of 5, and people 14 and older average a capacity of 7 things. Once the maximum capacity is reached in the working memory, items begin to be dumped off to make room for more information. Unless the information from the working memory makes its way into long-term storage, it is lost. Long-term storage is memory that you have kept for an extended period of time. These memories can be retrieved and placed back into the working memory during recall. Your long-term memory affects your cognitive belief system. Your cognitive belief system houses your morals, values, and your understanding of how the world around you works. Finally, your past experiences affect your self-concept, which changes how you remember things. Self-concept is the way that we view ourselves. Often, people with low self-concept on a topic they have often failed at will be less enthusiastic about putting forward an effort. In contrast, a person who has a high self-concept about a task they have often succeeded doing will be more likely to put forward a significant amount of effort into the task. In order for students to retain information and hold it in their working memory long enough for it to transfer into their long-term storage, it needs to have sense and meaning. Sense is when the information fits in with what students have learned in the past. When the new information agrees with the student's past learning or cognitive belief system, the student is likely to make more connections and understand that the topic makes sense. Meaning is when the student finds the information relevant to their life and necessary for future use. Meaning is much more important than sense for a student to retain information long-term. Teachers can help students to create meaning in their lessons by integrating the curriculum so that students may make more connections between different subjects. There are 4 different kinds of memories: declarative, implicit, emotional, and flashbulb. A declarative memory can be episodic or semantic. An episodic memory is a conscious memory of an event that occurred in your own life. For instance, remembering what you wore yesterday or a birthday party you went to 5 years ago is an episodic memory. A semantic memory is a rote fact kind of memory, such as knowing what year the Declaration of Independence was signed. An implicit memory, or a non-declarative memory, is a kind of memory that is used daily but cannot be explained clearly. There are 4 different types of implicit memories. The first one is procedural memory. It refers to how you drive a car or get dressed in the morning. It is implicit because you learn this process over an extended period of time, and you can't really explain how you know to get dressed. The second type of implicit memory is perceptual representation system, or PRS. This pertains to our memory of what objects look like, or what words mean. Again, you can't really explain how you know what an apple looks like, besides the fact that you've probably seen one many times throughout your life. The third type of implicit memory is classical conditioning. It describes the phenomena in which a response is associated with a stimulus. For instance, when the school bell rings at 2:05 p.m., you immediately get up from your desk and leave the classroom. This is what we call a conditioned response. You have learned to react to a bell this way by attending school for many years. The fourth and final type of implicit memory is non-associative learning. It comes in 2 forms: habituation and sensitization. Habituation is when we figure out that things in our general area do not need to be recognized. For instance, after a few minutes of sitting in the hairdressers, you'll probably stop smelling all the hairspray. Sensitization is the opposite. Sensitization occurs when we increase our response to something. For instance, most people have sensitized themselves to the phrase, "watch out," to protect themselves from getting hit by flying objects. The next kind of memory is emotional. This is where we remember if we liked an experience, like going to Grandma's for Thanksgiving, or not. We may not remember that we had a bad experience with cat hair in the food, but we can remember that we don't want to go back again for Thanksgiving next year. The final type of memory is a flashbulb memory. A flashbulb memory is a kind of memory that is triggered by a smell or a conversation. This person experiencing a flashbulb memory will have a flashback or a very vivid recollection of the event like they were there again. The primacy-recency effect is one where you can remember information most clearly at the beginning of a lesson and then again at the very end of a lesson. The part of the lesson where you learn best at the beginning is called primetime 1, or the primacy effect. The part of the lesson where you learn best at the end is called primetime 2, or the recency effect. The part of the lesson in between the beginning and the end is called downtime, where you have the lowest retention. For teachers, this means teach the new material at the beginning of the lesson. Then, as the students enter downtime, teachers should have guided practice. Because guided practice, or practice by doing, has a high learning rate at 75%, you are making the most out of your downtime. Finally, as students rise up to prime time 2, the teacher should review the information that was covered throughout the lesson and provide the students with closure. This is so that during closure, students may have more organized connections of their learning to store long term. It is also important for teachers to remember that shorter blocks during scheduling are better for retention because the period of downtime is shortened drastically. Resting between lesson segments is also beneficial to students. Because students who take a break between lesson segments retain as much information as students who stay on task, you may as well give the students a short break. Transfer during learning alludes to the effect that past knowledge has on the learning taking place right now. Transfer of learning refers to how the student applies the learning in the future. There are two types of transfer that can occur during the learning process. The first is positive transfer. Positive transfer helps the learning to make new connections to previous learning. The student who experiences positive transfer will be able to make sense of the information without conflict. The second type of transfer is negative transfer. Negative transfer is when past learning interferes with new information. Negative transfer typically occurs when a student has learned past information incorrectly or has learned two very similar concepts at the same time. Unfortunately, the student will have a lot of difficulty making sense of the new information. If students have a lot of rote memories of specific facts, they will likely not experience much positive transfer. The best way for schools to help facilitate positive transfer is to connect all the students' lessons together to make multiple connections. For instance, if a school was doing a unit on water, a science class could teach about water's scientific properties. An English class could read a novel about a scuba diver. A math class could calculate water in gallons, and a history class could discuss the event of the Titanic sinking.